In a television show, much like To Tell the Truth, you will encounter a group of contestants, all attempting to convince you that they are the real person. Your task is to discern who is genuine and who are the imposters. To do this, you must listen attentively, observe carefully, and use your analytical skills to determine the truth. Contestant number 1 asserts he is the real man because he embodies a culturally progressive role. He actively shares household and child-rearing duties with his wife while they both pursue careers. He views his wife as his equal. Contestant number 2 elaborates that he is the real man because he has liberated himself from traditional male stereotypes and chosen to embrace the nurturing role of caring for the children and household while his wife pursues her career. He views his wife as his equal, or perhaps even superior, acknowledging her compassionate and sensitive nature compared to his own. Contestant number 3 tells you he is the real man because he adheres to the traditional male role. He ensures his family's financial stability while his wife manages the children and the household. As long as he provides a home and food, he believes he is meeting his responsibilities as a husband and father. This man does not consider his wife to be his true equal. These days, there's a myriad of images portraying what it means to be a man, each vying for acceptance in society. Men often find themselves grappling with these various representations, feeling as though they're expected to choose the most convincing version of masculinity from a lineup of contestants. However, there's no clear-cut winner among these competing ideals. To add to the confusion, societal expectations keep shifting and blending, leaving men unsure of what's truly expected of them. They're confused and frustrated as they try to sort through their own expectations for manhood while feeling pressure from the various segments of society that are promoting these images, or an impossible combination of them. Meanwhile, Hollywood inundated us with captivating depictions of masculinity, embodied by icons like James Bond and Rambo. While these characters are larger than life, often portraying superhero-like qualities, their allure is undeniable. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that a real man should emulate the power and resourcefulness exemplified by these fictional figures. The current cultural landscape poses a significant challenge for men, particularly because traditional notions of masculinity have been closely tied to their roles and responsibilities within society and the family unit. However, over the past 4 decades, there has been a noticeable shift in these roles, both for men and women, as societal norms evolve. This has happened just in the last 40 years or so. We're in the middle of a cultural transition, and competing ideas of masculinity are causing perplexing problems for men. They are being pulled in several directions at once, while they try to figure out what it means to be a real man in today's world. In recent years, there has been a growing body of literature focusing on the challenges faced by men in modern society, suggesting that many men are experiencing a state of crisis and internal conflict. Studies indicate that men are grappling with uncertainty about their identity and struggling to understand what is expected of them by women and society at large. This uncertainty stems from the collision of new societal expectations with traditional ideals of masculinity, which men have internalized from various sources such as family, culture, or personal inclinations. Many men find themselves navigating a complex landscape of conflicting expectations and struggling to reconcile these conflicting messages as they seek to define their roles and identities in today's world. Men's basic conceptions of manhood are therefore being disrupted. They feel displaced. They are either frustrated and struggling to adapt to a new but vague concept of who they are, or they're angry and trying to reverse the flow of change. Are traditional roles to be completely discarded? And if so, what will take their place? These are pressing questions that many men grapple with today. 1. Should men still demonstrate chivalry? Is it appropriate to open doors, pay for meals, and offer other gestures of courtesy? Many men have found themselves in awkward situations where their attempts at chivalry are met with resistance or offense from women who see such gestures as outdated or patronizing. 2. Is the traditional notion of men as leaders and authorities in the home still applicable? This has become less clear as women assert their autonomy and reject the idea of male authority. Some men find themselves unsure about how to navigate relationships with women in this evolving dynamic. 3. Is the expectation for men to be the breadwinners and protectors still valid? Nowadays, women are increasingly independent, earning their own income, and asserting that they don't require protection. This leaves men uncertain about their role in providing for and safeguarding women. 4. Are men still expected to be the defenders of their families, properties, and countries? With more women entering law enforcement and the armed forces, traditional notions of male protectiveness are being challenged. Some men feel uncertain about their role when their partners or female family members take on roles traditionally associated with male protection. Is there anything now that marks a man as different from his female counterpart? Based on the above scenarios, that's a difficult question to answer. Males and females are in a state of gender upheaval and confusion. So how does one navigate this evolving landscape of masculinity? What is the role of men in relation to women? How can men reconcile the myriad versions of masculinity promoted in society? If you're a man feeling disoriented by the shifting dynamics of work, relationships, and societal norms, you're not alone. This era presents unprecedented complexities for men of all ages as they grapple with conflicting ideas and values of manhood. What has happened? In the past, men looked to their fathers or cultural traditions to shape their understanding of manhood. There was a sense of continuity in masculine roles, passed down from one generation to the next. But times have changed. In just a couple of generations, centuries-old traditions have been discarded. This shift, perhaps initiated by movements like feminism and cultural transformations in Western societies, has rippled across the globe. The impact of these changes is felt worldwide, reshaping perceptions of masculinity in diverse ways. Consider my own life compared to that of my father's. It's like night and day. I can't simply follow in his footsteps, nor can my sisters emulate the environment in which our mother thrived. Our parents inhabited a different era, with distinct notions of masculinity and femininity. Historically speaking, until recently, the man had certain accepted roles, and the woman had certain accepted roles, and they didn't usually overlap. You can go back 50, 100, 500, 2,000, 4,000 years, and you'll find a fairly consistent pattern of roles for men and women that were acknowledged and valued. There were some very practical reasons for this long-standing pattern. While there have always been exceptions to this norm, the majority of families adhered to these traditional roles, shaping the dynamics of male-female relationships for generations. This traditional pattern continues to have an influence on male-female relationships today. In pre-modern times, biological differences largely defined the roles of men and women. Men, being generally physically stronger, took on the role of hunters and providers for their families. Women, equipped for childbirth, were primarily responsible for caring for the children. With limited birth control options and no alternatives like abortion, biology dictated these roles. A man didn't have to wonder whether he or his wife would stay home and raise the children. Roles were less complicated because they were predetermined by biology. Additionally, people lived in a more hostile physical environment where daily life was a constant struggle for survival. This harsh reality further reinforced the role of men as providers and protectors. Given their physical strength, men naturally took on the responsibility of ensuring the safety and sustenance of their families, adapting to the demands of a challenging world. At that time, making a living was an especially precarious job. The man literally had to risk his life to take care of his family. This caused his wife and children to look to him for leadership and to value his crucial contribution to their survival. They depended on him. When a man went out to get food for his family, there was no guarantee he would return alive. He might be fatally wounded by an animal or succumb to harsh weather. Therefore, the woman rejoiced each time he came back safely. This attitude persisted into our parents' and grandparents' eras, when most husbands were the sole breadwinners and wives stayed at home. In the evenings, the whole family celebrated the father's return. Why? Because he had faced a perilous world to provide for them. Jobs were often scarce, and sometimes the only work a man could find involved long hours in the fields or dangerous conditions in coal mines. When a man came home limping, his wife understood he had risked his health or even his life to ensure there was food on the table. The basic needs of survival required men and women to develop specific roles and skills which they passed down to succeeding generations. Until your grandparents' time, or even your parents' time, everyone knew their role and had the skills to fulfill it. The husband understood his responsibilities and carried them out. The wife knew her duties and performed them diligently. The family I grew up in was a typical example of the not-so-distant past. I am one of 11 children. My father rose in the morning before we children were awake and returned home after we'd gone to bed. His entire life was dedicated to working tirelessly to feed nearly a dozen children, keep a roof over our heads, and clothe us. It was a round-the-clock job. My mother stayed home, and her job was equally demanding. She took care of all 11 of us, cooking meals, bathing us, washing our clothes, getting us off to school, ensuring we did our homework, and disciplining us. It was an extremely hard life focused on survival. In this way, although survival was challenging, relationships were comparatively simple because there was no confusion over gender roles. A man and a woman didn't have to worry about infringing on each other's responsibilities. Her role was to maintain the home, prepare meals, and care for the children. His role was to hunt or harvest crops and build a dwelling to provide food and shelter for the family. Life was straightforward, and in that sense, relationships were less complicated. This partnership in survival fostered an interdependence between men and women, creating a mutual appreciation. Both worked tirelessly in their respective roles, leading to a natural respect for one another. Their roles were clear, accepted as necessary, and important. In many of these marriages, the relationship between husband and wife was different from what we know today. Men were motivated by simple needs: food, sex, children, and security. They were not driven by the desire for conversation, sentimental exchanges, or emotional and psychological sensitivity. A man came home primarily to meet his basic needs. For the most part, a man was honored and loved by his wife, not because he was a good man or an affectionate companion, but because she knew he risked his life to take care of her and the children. Her love was rooted in his actions and sacrifices. He wasn't appreciated for being sentimental or romantic. He was valued for his ability to provide. If he didn't brave the elements and return with food, her respect would wane. The woman was honored and loved by her husband for her dedication to nurturing the children and maintaining the household. His respect for her wasn't necessarily based on charm or religious teachings, but on her vital contributions. She bore his children and managed the home, and he deeply valued her efforts. He didn't worry about who would feed, clean, or clothe the children. He trusted his wife with his responsibilities and respected her immensely for handling them. This means that romance wasn't a significant part of life for many of our early ancestors. Their main focus was survival, leaving little room for sentiment. Many married couples, until fairly recently, lived the same way. Men spent their days working hard to provide and protect their families. When they came home, they weren't thinking about romance. Their primary needs were food and rest. He wasn't concerned about taking his wife out to dinner or on shopping outings or giving her money to spend. He had money only to survive. The relationship was simply, look, we have to survive, and I have to protect you. Whatever I have to do to accomplish these things, that's life. In the past, men viewed marriage as a partnership, but not in the way we understand it today. They didn't see their wives as equals or believe that women were as capable as men. Partnership meant each had a specific role. The man provided and protected, while the woman took care of the home and children. This concept of marriage was ingrained in society. Husbands and wives respected each other for fulfilling their respective roles, not because they believed in gender equality. This was the societal norm. However, times have changed. Today, men and women live very different lives, no longer dependent on each other solely for security and survival. Our roles and expectations have evolved significantly. For centuries, men had a clear and exclusive role. They were the primary breadwinners, and the measure of their manhood was their ability to provide for their family and father children. Young men were traditionally advised, get a job, son, so you can support your family and have children. However, society's view of manhood is changing. Being the breadwinner is no longer the primary marker of manhood. While some families still follow the traditional pattern where the husband works and the wife stays home with the young children, even these families are influenced by modern ideas about gender roles and relationships. Our understanding of what it means to be a man is evolving along with these societal shifts. Biology no longer dictates male-female roles as it once did. Today, with the prevalence of dual careers and birth control, a couple might choose not to have children. Fertility decisions often fall to the woman, who may decide when or if they will have a baby. Even with a child, the wife may not stay home to care for the baby full-time. Daycare and other childcare options allow her to work part-time or full-time outside the home. This shift introduces new stresses to families. Children raised by daycare workers or nannies may not fully know their parents, and parents may be unaware of what the babysitter is teaching or doing with their children. This essentially means children are being raised by individuals whose values and methods the parents might not fully trust. In addition, because a woman's traditional role of childbearing and child-rearing once garnered her respect from her husband, men now need to find new ways to honor their wives. When a wife today demands respect, some men may think, what have you done to earn it? 21st century relationships are difficult. Modern relationships are challenging. Unlike the past, survival and protection are no longer our primary focus. Although we still face economic challenges and job-related stress, the physical risks are not the same. We aren't out hunting for food or battling the elements just to survive. With 24-hour grocery stores and microwave ovens, our physical environment is much more accommodating than it was for our ancestors. Today, a man leaves home in the morning, dressed in a suit, driving his luxury car to work in a comfortable office. For most people, the physical risk is largely absent. One significant difference between the past and the present is that when couples marry today, they often already have most of what they need instead of having to struggle to obtain it. Additionally, women are no longer reliant on men to provide for them after marriage. This shift can be unsettling for men, as the traditional role of provider is deeply ingrained in many of them. For example, a man will meet a woman and discover that she already owns material possessions. She has been working for some time, earns more money than he does, and drives a luxury car. She owns a condominium, a large television, a fully stocked refrigerator, and buys her own gas. She has it all figured out. When he expresses his desire to marry her and take care of her, he finds himself questioning what he can actually offer her. She doesn't need him for survival or protection. She is independent, and her expectations regarding men and marriage are entirely different from what they used to be. Some women wonder, how am I supposed to be submissive when I make more money than my husband and the house and furniture are mine? Essentially, she's telling the man, you have to earn my submission by offering me something I haven't already given you. That's a tough statement for a man to hear. The man might think, I can't give you anything because you already had more than I did from the start. How does a woman submit to someone she feels she is supporting? It's a difficult situation for both men and women, but it's the reality we face today. Do you wonder why divorces are so prevalent nowadays? One reason is that a woman can now tell a man bluntly, if you can't handle things properly, I'm going to leave. My mother had 11 children. When she had a problem, she couldn't say to my father, I'm going to leave you. Where would she go? She had no professional or academic training, no preparation for a job outside the home. The home was her entire life. Independence is a relatively new situation for women, and men are still learning to cope with this change. In many ways, the woman has taken over not only the man's traditional role of provider, but also that of protector. She has mace, a gun in her purse, and a cell phone to call the police instantly. So, what does the man do? He says, I'm your protector. And she replies, I don't need you to protect me. It's a different world. Men are often left wondering what they're supposed to do for women anymore. Men and women used to inhabit distinct spheres. The man's domain was work and survival, while the woman's was the home and children. There was no ambiguity about roles. They knew exactly where they belonged. Now, with women entering the workforce, the home is no longer her exclusive territory. This shift leaves men unsure about their role at home and women equally uncertain about theirs, creating confusion. Your father used to bring home the bacon, but now your wife is bringing home not only the bacon, but the pig. Besides that, she owned 2 pigs before you married her. She doesn't want any bacon from you. She already has bacon. If both husband and wife are now bringing home the bacon, who is the provider? This question is challenging for men. If both are contributing to the mortgage, who is putting the roof over their heads? Traditionally, your father was seen as the owner of the house because he bought and paid for it. Today, the house belongs to both the man and the woman. Many men wonder how their fathers managed to be the man of the house. Now, if a man tries to assert his authority, his wife does the same. The old teachings no longer apply. Your father might say, put her in her place, but now the place belongs to her. He might advise, show her who wears the pants in the family, but she wears pants too. Today's economic realities often require both partners to work to make ends meet. The cultural shift, with women going to college, pursuing careers, and delaying marriage, has significantly transformed family life. For instance, a man might say, honey, you need to bring up the pain, the children. And she might respond, no, I'm going to work. When he asks why, she might say, I want to use my education, and we need a double income to maintain our lifestyle, so I'm taking the job. He might then ask, but who will take care of the kids? You are the child bearer and nurturer. She could reply, my employer has a daycare center. I'm taking the job. What happens when a wife earns more than her husband and he believes he should be the provider and protector? He feels frustrated and even ashamed. This is why there's so much conflict in modern marriages. Couples argue over who should do what. These changes have dramatically altered our perspectives and traditional roles. Men are unsure what it means to be a man, and women are uncertain about what it means to be a woman. This shift has caused tension for both genders. For instance, some women feel uneasy when they say, "I'm a homemaker." In your parents' or grandparents' time, did anyone ask a woman, "So, what do you do?" That question was unheard of. But today, nearly every woman is asked this question. This implies that merely staying home and raising children is somehow inadequate or shameful. In the past, it was much simpler for a woman who stayed home with her children. She had the support of other women in the neighborhood who were also homemakers. Nowadays, if a woman is a homemaker, people might think there is something wrong with her. They wonder, is she lazy, or is she not creative? Or is she not smart enough to have a career? Or does she need to get a life? Society seems to be suggesting that only unambitious women stay home. In earlier generations, being a homemaker was a respected and valued role. Now, there's an unspoken critique that staying at home is not enough, that it is something to be pitied or criticized. This shift in societal values has made it more difficult for women who choose to be homemakers, fostering a sense of inadequacy where there should be pride. The shift in gender roles can be unsettling for both men and women, creating confusion about how to navigate this new reality. It's a psychological challenge for many, leading to feelings of tension and displacement as they try to understand what's changed. The truth is, we are simply living in a different world. Contemporary women who are increasingly independent and self-sufficient no longer feel the need for men to provide and protect them. This shift presents a dilemma for men who struggle to define their roles in relationships. For instance, when a boy takes a girl out for lunch and asks, "Are you going to pay for yours?" It contrasts sharply with the past, when men automatically paid. Traditionally, the man's role was to be the provider. Nowadays, if a man realizes he doesn't have enough money for dinner, the woman might casually say, "I'll cover the rest," without feeling any shame. She has the means and still likes him because she sees a scarcity of good men, and his worth isn't measured solely by his ability to provide financially. The independence of women is reshaping the traditional perception of men's value in relationships. Throughout history, men typically had shorter lifespans than women due to the physical demands of providing for their families. They endured harsh conditions and health risks to ensure survival. This sacrifice was deeply appreciated by women who valued their role as the sole providers. Consider when a woman hesitates to leave an abusive husband despite the harm inflicted. Her reluctance speaks volumes about the aspects of him she still cherishes. If a man dedicates his life to protecting and providing for his family, his worth is naturally elevated in their eyes. Despite his flaws, his commitment to their well-being earns him respect and admiration. The independence of women is reshaping the traditional perception of men's value in relationships. Throughout history, men typically had shorter lifespans than women. Due to the physical demands of providing for their families, they endured harsh conditions and health risks to ensure survival. This sacrifice was deeply appreciated by women who valued their role as the sole providers. In contemporary times, the dynamics of relationships have undergone significant transformations. When a man expresses interest in a woman, she may assert her independence by outlining her expectations up front, including the possibility of ending the relationship if he doesn't meet her standards. Prenuptial agreements are increasingly common, reflecting a shift in how assets are viewed within marriages. The traditional roles of men as providers are evolving, leading to uncertainties in some marital dynamics. Another significant change is that for the first time in recorded history, men and women look to one another primarily for love and companionship rather than survival and protection. Both men and women seek emotional fulfillment and lasting connections, reshaping the foundation of partnerships. However, navigating these new expectations can be challenging for men as they adapt to changing gender dynamics and evolving relationship norms. The traditional roles of men are no longer sufficient to ensure the happiness of their partners. Today, women seek companionship and attention to fulfill their emotional needs. Unlike in the past, where simply providing basic necessities like clothing and shelter was considered enough to make a woman happy, contemporary relationships demand more. So what can men do to meet these new expectations and make women happy? That's the question facing many in modern relationships. Gone are the days when men could simply assert their role as providers and expect contentment from their partners. The focus has shifted towards emotional connection, intimacy, and effective communication. When the man risked his life to give his wife food and protection, then intimacy, sensitivity, and good communication skills were not an issue. The woman didn't say, "Honey, you have to learn the psychological and emotional instability of a woman going through menstruation." A man didn't have time to learn to get along with a woman. Again, when he arrived home, it was dark, he was tired, and all he wanted was food and sex. The house was his, the food was his, and the rationale was, it's time to pay up. But nowadays, women prioritize intimacy and communication in their relationships. They express their need for emotional connection by saying things like, "Talk to me. You haven't told me you love me all day." Or, "You looked at everybody else except me. You didn't notice my dress." These sentiments reflect the changing expectations of women in modern relationships. In the past, conversations about topics like PMS were rare, as people, including husbands and wives, were too preoccupied with the demands of daily life to discuss such matters openly. However, the social landscape has evolved, allowing for more open dialogue about these issues. Nowadays, a woman might openly express, "Don't touch me now. I'm going through my cycle. My hormones are out of balance." When you're just trying to survive, you're not thinking in terms of moods. It wasn't necessarily a better way of life, but it was definitely a different way. Men are still trying to figure out how to build intimacy and communication into their relationships. A woman may find herself puzzled by her husband's difficulty in communicating with her. He may struggle to find the right words to say, leaving her unaware of the challenges he faces. Take, for instance, a scenario where she holds a high-level job, perhaps in leadership or administration. while he occupies a less prestigious position. When they sit down for dinner and she engages him in conversation, she operates on a highly intellectual level, discussing topics that align with her professional responsibilities. However, his job doesn't demand such intellectual rigor, leaving him feeling out of his depth. He becomes intimidated by her vocabulary and struggles to keep up, silently questioning his own competence as her equal partner. In our rapidly changing society, it's crucial for women to extend empathy and understanding to the men in their lives. For example, suppose a woman marries a man and they are settled in their house, and she says to him, "Be a man." He says, "Okay, how?" His back is against the wall. He used to know what that meant, but not any longer. So she says things like, "Be my spiritual head." He looks at her blankly. "My father was a caveman. He taught me that the Bible and church are for weaklings." So I'm really not much into church. I'll go to please you. But if that makes me a man, it's going to take a while. He doesn't understand spiritual matters as well as she does, because he was taught that religion is for women. So she says, "Comfort me." And he says, "How?" He didn't receive that kind of training from his father. She says, "Show me affection." And he says, "Oh no, how do you spell that?" She says, "Be sentimental." And he says, "Sentiment? Who? What is that?" He doesn't understand what she means. What do many women do in this situation? They become angry. "Just be a man." How? "Provide for me." "But you make more money than I do." The man is confused. He doesn't realize she wants him to provide for her emotional needs. Or if he does understand, he doesn't know how to fulfill those needs. Men need patience and understanding from their wives. Passion is also necessary for today's relationships. Remember that in the old days, the man would just ask, "Woman, are you ready or not?" There were no romantic preliminaries. He'd say, "Tarzan is ready for Jane. Is Jane ready? Okay, bring it on." That was it. Now, however, women want men to turn the lights down, bring scented candles into the room, and put flowers everywhere. The men say, "What's going on here?" You have to work for it now, man. It's hard work. In contemporary times, women have raised the bar for romance, expecting gestures like breakfast in bed, running bath water, lunch dates, frequent declarations of love, and lavish dinners, all before they might consider rewarding their partner later that night. It's a dynamic shift that has left many men feeling bewildered and uncertain about their roles in relationships. The abandonment of traditional male duties can seem daunting and even threatening, as the men grapple with the uncertainty of where they fit into this new landscape. The evolving nature of relationships between men and women has injected a sense of mystery and unpredictability, leaving men unsure of what to anticipate. I empathize deeply with the plight of men in this cultural dilemma. Through my exploration of this topic, it's become evident that men are facing serious challenges that strike at the core of their purpose and identity. While some of the scenarios may be lighthearted, the underlying issues are weighty, touching on fundamental aspects of one's sense of self. The confusion surrounding their roles and responsibilities has the potential to derail and even devastate lives. It's imperative that we recognize and understand the gravity of this situation. Extending empathy and support to men as they navigate these uncharted waters. All this ultimately comes down to what males use as a basis for their self-worth and identity. Because men have linked their identity to their roles. Now that the roles have changed, they have left themselves no basis for manhood. Whatever they replace their old idea of masculinity with may or may not be a true or fulfilling role for them. What is more troubling, when men don't understand their place in the world, they will often either withdraw from it or use their influence in harmful ways, such as committing crimes. What can men do to regain their footing and identity? First, they must adopt an entirely new way of thinking. Men must undergo a profound shift in their mindset. Rather than anchoring their self-worth solely in predefined roles, they need to embrace a new paradigm centered around purpose. The challenges they face today stem from a fundamental misunderstanding. They've been looking to roles as the bedrock of their identity, when in reality, these roles are merely societal constructs that can evolve over time. What men truly need to uncover is their intrinsic purpose, one that surpasses cultural and traditional boundaries. A man's actions and roles should stem from his inherent purpose rather than defining it. Thus, the solution to the male dilemma is not merely adapting to changing times, although some adaptation is necessary, but understanding the fundamental purpose of being male. In our confused society, the true essence of manhood cannot be gleaned from cultural observations alone. Men need a self-awareness that is independent of societal trends and external images. So where can we find these answers? Men need a God-given identity if they are to fulfill their true purpose. We must learn what God originally intended for them. To do this, we must go back and rediscover the Creator's original plan for both men and women. Once more, we must recognize that when men are unaware of their true identity, it impacts not only their personal fulfillment, but also the well-being of their families and society at large. God has bestowed upon males a unique leadership influence, meaning the state of the man often dictates the state of the family, society, and the world. If we fail to address the identity crisis among men, our entire generation faces significant challenges. There's no avoiding this truth. The answer for males in the 21st century is therefore to define their worth based on God's purpose rather than society's roles. Learn God's vision for their lives. Continue to live in the truth of who they were created to be. When men understand the purpose and responsibilities that God has given them and grasp the true nature of their relationship with women, they can reach their full potential and destiny. They can become the men they were always meant to be. If you are a man, you don't need to be confused about your identity and place in life, regardless of the conflicting signals society is currently sending out. You will find fresh vision and direction in rediscovering God's purposes for both males and females. Through this knowledge, men can be and do more than they ever imagined, and women can gain a new understanding and appreciation for men while enabling them to fulfill their calling. What is a real man? A real man knows who he is and lives according to that truth. This knowledge starts with understanding the significance of being created purposefully by God. Thank you for listening to this message, as we hope that it has been a blessing to you. Our goal is to show you new paths and opportunities so that you can discover your purpose. Please visit our channel for more videos.